I think the great thing about this exhibition is there are cars that people have never really seen before, put into a very different context. You know, the big thing, I suppose, with car enthusiasts is, are cars art or are they something else? And in a way, they're closest of all to instruments, it seems to me, that it's interesting to look at, but you are also having to compensate for the fact that you can't actually run them and use them. But this makes other connections. That's what I think I particularly like, that it's not a racing car exhibition, or it's not just about a timeline from early motoring to late motoring. It's making all sorts of other connections, particularly between art and the vehicles. You know, I think if I was sort of looking at what's there, I think something like the Damaxing, the car, is one of the really interesting things that most people would never have seen and probably wouldn't know about. Well, there's really two sides to it. The first, of course, is just loaning the car, but that was, I really like to have that particular car, the Ferrari, sort of recognised, I suppose. And I thought the exhibits were particularly good. I mean, I've seen lots of car museums over the years and car shows and so on, but this had a particularly interesting mix of interesting and unique cars. So that's perhaps one element. The other element was the business of the car sounds. And that was, first of all, when we started work on that, it was very unclear how we were going to do it, because I'd taken as a model what we'd done at the V&A Museum for the Pink Floyd exhibition, but it simply wasn't practical in that environment. And so there was quite a lot of, I'd say, stabbing about in the dark to find out what we could do and should do. Well, the final piece is a walkway, really, a walk down a gallery where every couple of meters or 3 meters, there's the sound of the car of the period. So the first, I can't remember whether we actually put the initial sound being horses, but the first car is an 1895 Benz, which just sounds, it's so obviously an early car. But then we work our way through cars from the sort of pre-First World War, First World War, 20s, 30s and so on, with a number of sort of racing cars and big American cars and so on, finally ending up with the noise of an electric car, of course, which is completely different to everything else that's heard on this journey down time. I think the ones that, I mean, the one I would most like to visit is the Apple Park. But that's partly because of what's in it. I mean, the interesting thing is, of course, when you're looking at architecture, you're only seeing about 10 or 15% because you're seeing the building from outside. And I think there's a lot to be said for actually saying, well, I'd really like to have a look inside some of these buildings to get to know them better and see how they function. The Gherkin, I think, works wonderfully on a skyline. It's absolutely terrific when you see it in situ. But there were so many of those wonderful sort of glass and steel, really sort of light. There's a style that I think is what's interesting, both the style and the thing of managing the environment.